Well, hey everyone. Just for fun, I thought I would talk about reading Stephen King. Hi, my name is Jonathan, and this is Mr. Pearson Talks Books. Welcome back to the channel. The other day I was watching some booktube videos, and I came across one from a lady whose channel is called Bookborn, and she was talking about the Stephen King books that she has read. And it got me thinking, how many of Stephen King's books have I actually read? So I went online and found a list of all of the things that he has written and wrote down the ones that I have read. And it turns out that I have read 9 of his books. Now, that may seem like a lot, but Stephen King's written about 7,000 books, including short stories and novellas and things like that. But I thought it would be fun just to share the ones that I have read and to the best of my ability, give you my thoughts on them. And I say to the best of my ability because some of these I read in middle school and I recently turned 47. So you can do the math and realize that was like 30 some years ago. My thoughts on them may not be as clear as if I had just read them. The first book that I really remember reading was the book Carrie. I think I read this around the time that I was 13, maybe 14. I had gone to the library and it was short and I grabbed it and I remember reading it in about a day. I stayed up late that night trying to finish it, and it was terrifying. It was for somebody my age. I was probably way too young to read that. But if you're not familiar with the story, it's about a girl named Carrie who lives with her overly religious mother. And as she starts to go through puberty and is experiencing bodily changes, she also develops telekinetic powers, or the ability to move things with her mind. Um, while all of that is happening, the kids at the high school decide that they're going to make her the butt of a joke, and it ends horribly. Now, this book's like 40 or 50 years old. It came out in the 70s. I think it was Stephen King's first published book. So you probably know how it ends, or maybe you've seen the movie with Sissy Spacek, which also terrifying. I did not sleep for days after watching that movie. But yeah, so that Carrie was the first one that I had seen, or the first book that I had read. And then when my father found out that I was interested in Stephen King, he started recommending some books to me. And the first two that I remember him recommending to me was Firestarter and The Dead Zone. Now, I don't remember which one of those I read first. And truthfully, I don't remember a lot of the details behind all of them. I know in Firestarter, there was a young girl whose parents had been given some drugs. And when she was born, she developed the pyrokinesis, the ability to start fires. And so the government is tracking her and her father, trying to get her back. It was a good book from what I remember. I actually recently made a video on 50 books that I want to read before I turn 50, and Firestarter, because of the ties that it has to my dad recommending it, is on my list to reread. The second one that I know he recommended for me was The Dead Zone. And this is about a guy who was in an accident and he ended up being in a coma for a number of years. And when he wakes up, he has this ability where if he touches somebody or comes in contact with them, he's able to see things that they might do in the future. And there is a politician who he comes in contact with and finds out what kind of hell that man is going to raise. And so he goes through the steps that he thinks he needs to go through in order to stop him. It was a good book from what I remember, but again, it was quite some time ago. So those are the first three that I read. Then I read a book called The Green, or was it The Green Mile? I read The Green Mile in college, yeah. And what was unique about The Green Mile, which is a story about prisoners on death row, is it was originally published serially. There we go. So little chapters were published each time, and they had all of the chapters. I think there were like 7 or 8 of them um, at my local library. And so when I was home from college doing some internship work for my education degree, I remember going to the library and getting those and staying up far too late reading it because I remember waking up very tired the next morning, and my professor or my cooperating teacher not being very happy with me for being so tired. But I read all of those in about a week and had a really good time with it. Next up was a book that I read called Cell, and this one was had something to do with cell phones and zombies, and I'll be honest, I did not like it. I read this probably 15 years ago, or maybe 16 or 17 years ago, somewhere in that time frame, around the time one of my sons had been born, and I was resting with him and reading it, and it was not good. It was not good at all. Yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. After that, I read 11/22/63, which is a big, thick book. And it is about a story about a guy who finds out he can time travel. And so he time travels back to 1963 in an attempt to stop Lee Harvey Oswald from assassinating John F. Kennedy. And there are some repercussions that come along with that. And now this is a big book because he travels back in time and he establishes a life, and he gets caught up in life, and there's some romance to it. There's also some really horrific elements, some pretty scary stuff that takes place. But it was great. I really like this one. It is on a lot of people's favorite book list for a reason. It was great. After that, I remember reading a book called The Institute. I may be getting these out of order. These aren't necessarily in the order that I read them. These are the order that I remember. On The Institute, starts off really, really horrifically. There's a boy who's very smart. He might have been adopted, or maybe I'm getting that wrong. But anyway, this government organization comes in and murders his parents. Turns out he has psychic abilities, and they want to use him and other children with psychic abilities to commit long distance assassinations. So they give them all of these film clips and try to use their powers in order to be able to assassinate people from across the world. If it sounds like the show Stranger Things, very much so. I think it was a big influence on that particular show. And I like this one. It was fun to read, and I actually recommended it, just like my father recommended Firestarter and Dead Zone to me. I recommended The Institute to my own children. Well, I recommended it to my oldest because he was the oldest. I also read Mr. Mercedes, which was the first in the Bill Hodges trilogy. And Bill Hodges is a police detective who is retired, and there was a guy who went to a job fair in a car and ran over a bunch of people and then was able to escape. And so Bill is trying to catch him before he kills again. This one was interesting because I like crime books, but there was some really gross stuff, just horrific, horrific stuff. That seems to be a common thread with Stephen King. He's a great storyteller, great writer, but he puts some gross stuff in a lot of his books. And I never finished the series primarily because of how gross this was. And then the last one, and I think this might have been the most recent one that I read, that was a book called The Outsider. And this one was a bit of a crime novel that went horrific, because there is a guy in town who everybody loves. He's the little league coach and all of these things. He becomes accused of committing a really heinous, awful crime. And again, going back to that Stephen King stuff about being gross, the description of the crime was pretty nasty. It was pretty gross. But he was accused of this, and then they come to find out that it might be some type of supernatural entity who may have taken his place and done that. And so they have to figure out how they're going to stop it, if that is even the truth behind it. Yeah, so that one was interesting. They made a TV show about it, but I never got to see the TV show. I think most of these have been turned into TV shows or movies at some point, because Stephen King is such a great writer and people love him so much. So those are the 9 books of Stephen King's that I have actually read. He has, like I jokingly said, he has about 7,000. He does have a lot. And on that list of 50 books that I want to read before I have 50, I have 3. Actually, I think I have 4. I have Firestarter, which I mentioned, Salem's Lot, which is a vampire novel, The Stand, which is about 1,200 pages long, a post-apocalyptic horror novel, and a book called The Gunslinger, which is the beginning of this interconnected fantasy series. So I have all of those books on there. Not sure which one I'm going to get to next, but I am looking forward to reading it. And of course, they spin off. They're all tied together. So who knows, I may end up reading even more Stephen King. So those are the Stephen King books that I've read since I've been a reader. And I'm kind of curious, do you like Stephen King? And if so, do you have a favorite book of his that you've read? And which one would you recommend that I read in addition to the ones that I already mentioned, the ones that I'm planning to read? The Stand, The Gunslinger, Salem's Lot, and a reread of Firestarter. Please leave all those down in the comments. I'd love to get your feedback on this. And I'd also, if you are interested, I'd like you to take a look at the 50 books I want to read before I turn 50, which is a little less than 3 years from now. I'm going to leave a video card up here so you can click over to watch that. And as always, my name is Jonathan. This is Mr. Pearson Talks Books. We'll see you next time.